All right, I am recording, so we're good to go. All right, so thank you, Jenny and Lamprini, for having me to talk to your students about the library, to introduce them to it. I did this maybe last weekend or the weekend before that, I'm not quite sure, with a group of graduate students, and I only had 30 minutes to tell them everything they needed to know about how to find the library, how to use the library, how to do research, and I felt like an auctioneer. I was just going so fast, and at the end of it, I don't even remember what I said, but I'm so glad to have a little more than 30 minutes to talk with you about how you can use the library in your research. So what I'm going to do is just kind of make sure everybody knows how to get to the library's website. We're going to step through our page there and then focus in on a few specific resources, do some searches together, just to give you a basic orientation, because there's a whole lot more that I could say about each of the resources that we have available to you and so on. But I just want to give you an introduction to kind of get you going on your way, knowing that, you know, at any point in the future, if you have questions or concerns or feel like you need some extra attention or help, you're always welcome to reach out to me and we can connect and get you the help that you need. So first of all, I want to make sure everybody knows how to get to the library's website. So I know some of you are coming already from SMWC and others are coming from outside of our college for the first time. So some of this you may already know, some of it, a lot of it is pretty logical, but I just want to make sure everybody knows how to get to the spot that we're going to be on today. And there are lots of ways that you can get to the library's website. So you'll see on my screen right now, we're at the college's homepage. So under that offices and resources link in the top ribbon, there is a link to the library. You can also just directly type in the friendly URL that we have for the library's page, which is library.smwc.edu. So remember, it's not smwc.edu/library because we found out that takes you somewhere else. So remember, it's a library first, library.smwc.edu. Certainly in D2L, you should always find links to the library in that student resources box. So that first one will just take you to the library's website. That second link, library resource and databases, will take you to a listing of all the databases that we have available to you. And we'll look at that in just a minute too. And if all else fails, you can always just Google smwc.edu or SMWC library, and the first link that pops up will bring you here. So this is our library webpage. What I'm going to do is kind of step through the main screen there, and then we'll come back and take a look at that menu over there on the left-hand side. But front and center, the first thing you see there is that big old search box. So I have a couple of things to make you aware of with that particular search box. So realize that that search is very much like a library Google search. So this is searching our discovery service. And when you search that discovery service, you're searching all the databases that we have access to, our online catalog, and then some. So you're searching not only the resources that we have made available to you through subscriptions and whatnot, but you're also searching resources to which you do not have immediate access to content. So it's a broad search, searching lots and lots of resources. So if you do a search in that box, you're going to get back literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of results. And you may be in a situation where that's what you want, right? You may be just starting out research in your area. You want to see where your literature is going in that field. And so that may work just fine for you to get you going. I think it's a great place to go if you have a specific work that you're looking for, whether it's a book or an article. You can type in as much of that citation as you want in that box, and you'll see if we have access to it. But generally, I would advise that you kind of hold off on using that search and start your search in more appropriate discipline-specific databases. And we'll see those again in just a minute. So save that search box for those situations where you just kind of want to see where the literature is going, if you have a very specific work that you're looking for, or if your topic is very esoteric or very nuanced. If you have a very focused topic, you know you need to look everywhere and then some, then that may be a good place for you to start. But otherwise, even at the graduate level, I encourage you to kind of start your research in appropriate discipline-specific databases. And that's all I'll say about that. So moving on to the databases. So we'll go ahead and click on that and see all the databases that are available to you. So we're fast approaching 130 databases here. And I'll just mention that you can filter this list in a couple of different ways that I think would be relevant and important to you. So you can filter these by subject. So if you just want to see business databases, you can click on that and you'll get a list of databases that really focus in on business content. You can also filter by source type. So I'm going to go ahead and click on theses and dissertations because I know, especially for those of you in the MLD, you'll be writing a final project. And you may want to see examples of works that are written at that level to help you out. And you'll see there that that first one listed, digital content at SMWC, is actually our online institutional repository. So for those works that have been written recently, so around 2015 and later, we get a digital copy that we upload here into this repository so that they're available for you to see. And I'll just show you that we have MLD projects in here. And so you can come in here and browse these and look at these to help you kind of get an idea of how those things should be formatted and kind of the quality of work that would be expected of you if you're writing one of those. So I'm going to go back. So of course, you know, since I think our library webpage is wonderful, it's my homepage, so it's very easy for me to get back to. So, you know, I would encourage you to do the same, right? Because you'll love this. So one thing to note, this won't happen for me today because I've already been in here this morning looking at things, but if you are off campus, which is, you know, all of us, the first time you go to access one of these databases, you will be prompted to insert your SMWC credentials. So you're just verifying with the suppliers of the database that you're a legitimate verified user, you should have access to the content. And so you will put in your SMWC email address without that domain, so everything before at smwc.edu, and then the password that's associated with that. And once you do that, you'll be in and everything will be seamless and everything will look the same for you as it will during our time together in this presentation. If you do have some issues logging in and you know it's kind of a password issue or a login issue, then you'll have to contact IT for help with that. So there's their phone number, the phone number for the help desk, the 1177, as well as their email address, helpdesk@smwc.edu. But I hope that you don't have any issues with that. Going down a little bit more on the page, there are hours. So certainly it's the weekend during the summer, so our building is closed today. You can expand that out and see all of our operating hours for the next 3 months if that is something you want and or need to do. And then ask the librarian. So essentially this is these are all the different ways that you can connect with us at the library. So you see there, you can text us, you can email, you can call us. And then normally when we're open, down in the lower right-hand corner right now, you see this little call out that is grayed out right now. That's our chat service, so you can chat with us. I don't know of anybody who hasn't, you know, used that on some kind of website to get some help. So know that we're keeping up with everybody else in the land of technology so that you can chat with us live. And that will be available during our operating hours. So, you know, once the semester kicks off, someone will be manning that from 8 in the morning to 10 in the evening most days, except for on the weekend. Those hours will be a bit more limited. And there's also a form so that when that chat is offline, you will see you have the chance to submit a question through our online form, and that will come to me and I can respond to that. But the point is, there are lots of different ways that you can connect with us. So do whatever is most convenient for you at the time, whatever you're most comfortable with, but know that we're here to help. And then nearing the bottom of the page here, we have some forms for special requests. So these first two, request articles and request books, are ones that really you probably will not likely use very often, if at all, because you'll see as we get into databases, there are links embedded in these databases that will allow you to request content that you don't have access to immediately. But some things I'll mention with this is that, you know, these are our interlibrary loan services, and these are time-sensitive processes. So note that if you're requesting articles, you should budget a good 3 to 5 days to get content back. And if you're requesting books, that's going to be a bit longer. And, you know, the turnaround time on that will just depend on if we're able to get an ebook of that for you and send it to you, or if we have to get a physical item and somehow get that to you. But just note that those things take some time. And so I know that's not going to be an issue with you because you're at the graduate level. So you're planning ahead, you're doing your research ahead. You're not what I like to call affectionately, maybe not, midnight researchers, the ones who are up at midnight trying to get their papers done for Monday morning at 8 o'clock. So I know you're not going to run into any of those issues.
There's no way.
Right, right. And then the purchase request. So you are welcome to suggest things for us to add to our collection, whether those are electronic materials or physical materials, and we'll take a look at those requests. If they align with our collection scope, then we will add those and let you know about it if you wish to know about it. And then last but not least, you know, we are on social media. So there's our Facebook feed. We're also on Twitter. Our handle or name, I'm not sure what you call them on those platforms, is the same on both. So at SMWC Library. And then you can follow us on social media and get lots of neat little updates and things like that through social media. So I'm going to come back here to our menu and step through this very quickly. We're almost towards the end of the information stuff, and then we'll get into looking at resources in depth. So the databases, we've already looked at that. I'm going to skip over library guides because that's where we're going to land and spend the rest of our time together. We do have an FAQ, so these are the questions that I get a lot, or ones that I know are pretty easy to answer, and so I put them in here so that if we're offline and you have this burning question that you think some others have asked before, then you can come in here and see if that's there. So one that I get a lot is, you know, how do I find the theses or projects? And so there is a quick little answer there with some links to help you out so that you can get that information even when someone is not available live to help you with it. And of course, there's that form there to submit a question so that if you don't see your question there, you think it's one that others have asked before or even not, you can use that form to submit your question, and that will go into a queue for us to answer as well. That facilities link, really that's not very useful. That just contains a bunch of outdated information about our actual physical building and what's there and all of that. And then the contact us, that is my personal contact information. So there's my phone number, that's my direct line, and then my email address. And you can also use Rusty.Tryon at SMWC. I'm one of those folks who has a name that I don't like to use, so I use my nickname, but that alias email will work too. And then that mailing address, that's important for you to know, especially if there's something in our physical collection that we check out and mail to you, then that's the address that you would mail materials back to us. And if you are doing that, if you have something of ours you're mailing back to us and you want to, you know, physically go to the post office and do that, I would encourage you to ask to ship that back via the library rate or the media rate, because it's a bit cheaper than sending it back just regular first class mail. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on library guides. This is where we're going to kind of wrap out our time together, knowing that, you know, we still have a good 35 minutes to go, and that's great. So essentially what you're seeing here are mostly subject-specific research guides. You see they're all labeled research guide and so on and so forth. And so for each area of the college where we have a major or a program, I've created one of these research guides to help you get started in doing your research. So I'm going to scroll down here and find the one that's the library research guide or leadership research guide. And the thing about all of these research guides is that they're all structured the same way. And that was very intentional on my part because I wanted you to know that you're going to find a similar layout so that you can expect the same type of thing regardless of what discipline you might be researching in. So these are all organized by source type. And on the left-hand side in the navigation menu, you will see this consistently throughout. There's that little introduction that just says, hey, you know, these are the go-to resources for doing research in this particular field. And then you'll have relevant journal databases, article databases, books and ebook databases. And then after that, they may diverge a bit depending on the discipline. So there are certain resources and tools used in other disciplines. So I think our business research guide will have here a section on finding company information. And then, you know, in music, there are scores databases and things like that. but then they all kind of come back together towards the end there so that there's consistently the citation help and the library help. But know that what these research guides do is just give you a few databases that are the most relevant in the field so that you can get going on your research pretty quickly, and that they're all structured in the same way so that if you're doing research in another field, then you know where to go to find, say, a book database or an article database in a different field to get going in research in that way. So for leadership, knowing that, leadership studies can be interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. There are several databases here that may be relevant that you might want to search to do research in that particular area. What we're going to do is just focus in on one here, but I will show you a neat little trick here once we get into this database that will allow you to search several of these databases all at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Yay, it did what I wanted it to do. So when we're off campus, we will get this screen, and this is the little verification check so that the database supplier knows we're a legitimate verified user. So we'll log into that, and then passes us through here, and we're smooth sailing from here on out, okay? So the majority of the databases that we have available to you, proprietary databases, are on this platform. This is the Ebsco platform. So I would say, become very familiar with the layout of this and the functions and features of this particular interface, because most of the content you'll be looking for will be on this particular interface. So this choose databases link next to the name of the database that we're in will pop up all the resources that are available to us on this platform. So you can see there are oodles and gobs, tons of databases that are available to us on this platform. So if your topic that you're researching is one that is, again, more interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, you can come in here and check off relevant databases to expand where you're searching without going to the extreme of the discovery search where you're searching all of these databases, other databases that we have on other platforms, and then content well beyond what we're subscribed to. So if you're doing something in education, you can come and find the education databases, ERIC and others, and check those off and search those at the same time. If you're doing something more from a psychological perspective, we have all the APA databases up here that you can check and search at the same time. And so you'll just check those off, click that OK button, and then at the top here, you'll have a link that says show all, and you'll be able to see all the databases that you're searching together. So one thing to note when you do that is that each database has its own unique features and limiters that you can apply to searches. And whenever you select multiple databases to search at the same time, you're kind of reducing those limiting features down to the lowest common denominator. So especially if you're researching in psychology, you might be able to limit by a certain type of study, a certain population, so on and so forth, within the database feature of APA PsycInfo. And those features are going to be eliminated when you're combining databases. So just note that there's that little twist to searching when you're selecting multiple databases. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started here on a search. So I'm going to try and search something that seems relevant to those in both fields. Now, certainly, we have all of these search boxes available to us, and you can use this plus button down here to add even more to your search statement, more to your search string, and use that as you need to. Today, I'm just going to keep things very, very simple and just do this one little search here. Again, just as an example. So some things to note: I placed that term in quotation marks. So the database is smart enough to know that glass ceiling is a phrase, and that's in the algorithm that's in place here in the database and how it returns results knows to search for that phrase. But if you have something that you really want to preserve the integrity and the meaning behind a phrase, you can place it in quotation marks, and that tells the database that what you want back in your search result has to be these two words in this exact same order. So use those quotation marks to preserve the logic of the phrase that you're searching. And if you want to, you can search in certain fields of the record. That'll make sense in just a minute once we look at a record. But if you want to make sure that this is only showing up in the title of the article, then you can limit that way. As a subject term, you can limit that way. but initially we're not going to do that. So some things to note about these other search boxes. So again, when it comes to doing searches, for the most part, the more you add in terms of terms to your search string or limiters, the fewer results that you'll get back. And generally that's the direction we want to go, right? We want to make sure we're getting a manageable list of relevant resources for our research. So, some things that you might think about in terms of your research and to limit even more, think about geographic limitations. So you might want to search for this only in the United States. You might want to search by a certain population. So certainly, glass ceiling, it's implied that we're talking about women, but it could be other minorities. And so you might add in a certain population. So these are all going to be the limitations of your research that you might want to consider that you can add into these search boxes to further narrow down the results of your search. So I'm going to execute this very simple search here and show you the different ways that you can limit. So right now we're going to focus on the left-hand side of the screen here, and we're going to focus in on these limiters. So the first thing I'm going to do is check off this scholarly peer-reviewed journals box. So this will eliminate anything from my search result that was more popular in nature, trade publications, magazines, things like that, that for my purpose, I'm doing serious research. I want to make sure I'm only using academic content for the purpose of my project or my assignment. And so by checking that box, I know that that's what I'm getting back in my result list. So scholarly peer-reviewed journals, these are academic journals. They've gone through this editorial process by experts in the field to make sure that what's being produced is current, it's accurate, so on and so forth. So know that that's the type of content you're getting back when you check that box. Another way to limit is by date. So a lot of times you will only want to be searching what's been published recently in your field. And so I'm going to limit to 2016 to the present. And that brings down my result list as well. And then the last thing I'm going to do is check off this little source types. So that academic journals is a bit of a misnomer. Essentially what we're doing when we check that is we're bringing back only journal articles. So it will eliminate things like book reviews and things like that. So we're only getting back journal articles. So my very broad search of glass ceiling, I've been able to narrow down to just 170 articles, which I think is pretty manageable for me to get going with doing my research. So I'm going to click on the very first result here. By clicking on the title, it will bring you to the record for this particular piece of information. So this is the point where I say, I'm sorry, I'm going to totally nerd out on you because this is what we love in libraries. This is what we do is we organize information. So I'm going to explain to you what's happening on this page, which is important for you to know. There's a lot of information on here that's that you need to know as a serious researcher, as an ethical researcher, and also some helpful information for you. So right there, big and bold in the center of the screen, that's the title of the article, followed by the authors and then the source. So that's the name of the journal and then all that fun information that you need to know when you cite this source. So the volume number, issue number, page range, all of that is listed there in that particular area. Subject terms. So again, this kind of refers to those drop-down menu options that we had up above. And so you can limit searches to any of these fields that are showing up here, authors, source, subject, so on and so forth. And one thing to consider about subject terms is this. This is a very controlled area of the record. So this is these terms have been assigned to this article by a professional librarian who has read this article and determined that this is what this article is about. And so we use a set of predefined terms to describe information. And the benefit of that is that by clicking on any one of these subject terms, it will bring back for you all the other articles in this database that have that same term assigned to it. So it's a very efficient way to get back relevant results on a particular topic. And you may find that you need to use a combination of these to get to your exact topic. So it may be that you use glass ceiling, employment discrimination, and accounting, as that's your research topic and that's where you're focusing on. So you may have to use a combination of those, but it will bring back very relevant results just by using those two descriptors. Further down on the record, you have an abstract. That's a summary of the article. I love when records have abstracts. So you can just spend a minute or two reading that, decide if it's relevant for your research or not. If it is, great. If not, then you've only spent a couple of minutes looking at that. The other thing to note is the DOI. So when you're citing sources, especially in APA style, that's something you may have to include. And so that's where you'll find it in this particular database. All right, so over on the left-hand side, there's the HTML full text, there's the PDF full text link. I'm a big fan of PDFs. Not only does it give me the look and feel of the print journal article, but I can download it and save it, and it behaves as you would expect a PDF to behave. So it's keyword searchable and all of that. And so I have that article right there immediately on the screen in front of me. Over on the right-hand side, I'll quickly go through some of these tools. So if you love all things Google, you can sign into your Google Drive account and save a PDF of this article there. You can add articles to a folder. So there's a caveat with this too. So on that first search list, maybe you have, say, 10 minutes that you're going to dedicate to going through and finding a couple of articles for your assignment. You can go through and add those things to a folder. It changes the little icon there, and up at the top of the page, it changes this icon. This is kind of your grand folder that you're putting everything into. So the thing to note about this is that when you're putting things into a folder at this point, it's a temporary folder. So if I were to close out my screen, that folder and its contents would disappear, and that catches people off guard more often than you would think, and results obviously in a lot of frustration and disappointment. So realize that when you're putting things into a folder, it's temporary. So if you're doing that 10-minute quick research, you've got 5 or 6 articles that you think are great. Before you close out that window, go back into that folder and send those results to yourself via email or save them in some other way so that you retain that work that you've done. Another option for you, though, is to sign in, and that will allow you to sign in and create an Ebsco account. So this is totally separate from your college account and your college credentials. So you'll go in there, create your own little Ebsco account, and that will allow you to create permanent folders. So as long as you're affiliated with us and have access legitimately to our content, you can go in and create as many folders as you need and save content in those folders that when you sign out will always remain in there. So if you're working on your MLD project, you want to create a folder for your literature review, you can do that. Go in, create a folder called MLD Lit Review, put your articles in there, and kind of collect them together in that way. Or if you're working on a research assignment for a particular class, you create a folder for that class, put that content in there, and you can always go back into it. But that's only available to you once you create this standalone separate Ebsco account. Print, email, save, I think is pretty self-explanatory. That cite button is a great little tool to use that will generate for us in the middle of the screen this article formatted for the bibliography, works cited, reference list, whatever it might be called, for any number of common writing styles. So here's APA. So I always encourage students to use this. It's a great time saver. It prevents typos and things like that. So you can copy and paste this, put it into your document, and then the second follow-up, my second warning is always verify it to make sure that this particular citation is formatted correctly. Make sure it's accurate, make sure it's complete. One thing I noticed here is that we have some capitalization errors going on. So realize these things are machine generated, so you have to do your due diligence and go back and make sure that they're all formatted correctly. But again, I think it's a great time saver and something that you should know about and something that you should use. The other thing I'll point out here is the permalink. So this will generate for us up here a stable URL that's specific to this article in this database. So if there's something you need to share, or if your instructor asks you to use permanent URLs so that they can verify your research, then know that that's where you'll go to generate that. And that's the link that you would use. So in all situations, avoid this URL up here for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's super long. So if you put that on your reference list, it just looks horrendous. And then secondly, it's a temporary session link. So if anybody clicks on that, they'll get this mean error message that says that just doesn't exist. So always go for that permanent link and use that. Okay. I'm going to come back to my result list and show you a couple of other things here. So one thing you'll note here is that a lot of this content is available as full text, which is great. That's what we want to go for. We want to have that content that we can look for and access immediately. So you'll see the PDF and the HTML full text, but sometimes you may come across a link that's a bit different. So this one, instead of that PDF or HTML, instructs us to click for full text. Now what this means is that although this content is not available immediately for us to view in this particular database, that link tells us that we do have access to it somewhere else in library holdings. So when we click on that, it will tell us where that content can be found. So this is telling us it's coming from Taylor and Francis. And ideally, when we click on that, it should direct us to that article in that interface. And so there it is, there's our PDF full text. So the lesson is when you see that particular link, know number one, you should have access to it. And number two, that should direct you to the content through that intermediate link. Now, sometimes it doesn't work as nicely as it just did, and we might have to do a little digging. So if you come across a situation like that, feel free to reach out, and we'll help you get to that content. But ideally, it should work just as it did for us. So let me find another article here. I think number 15 is the one I want. Yep. Where we don't have those options, right? There's no hint that we have this available for us as full text. So in that case, we have the link labeled request a copy. That opens up this little form for us that we fill out. Essentially what I need is just some basic contact information from you. And then you'll see that all the information about that article has been populated for us. So once I fill out these little starred pieces of the form, I submit that, and that generates the interlibrary loan request. So that comes to me, and then I go out and work with other libraries to get you that content to send it to you electronically. So again, remember, this is a time-sensitive process. We ask you to budget a good 3 to 5 business days to be able to get that content. Although I will give you this little ray of hope. Generally, when I request things from another library, I get it back the same day or the next day at the latest. So if you're in a pinch and you really want something super fast like that, then know that that's the typical turnaround. But there are those situations where it can take a little longer. So especially if you're requesting something that's a bit older in its publication date, that may be available only in print, then that's going to take a lot longer for us to get and send to you than something that's available electronically. So if you see something like this that was published this year, or sometime in the 2000s, right, or even beyond that, know that those are going to be turned around a little bit quicker, but always budget for the worst case scenario. One thing I would encourage you to do, though, is to use this service, right? Because certainly you can go to the Review of Public Personnel Administration, to their website, to that journal homepage, and purchase that article. So if you wanted to do that, by all means, you're welcome to do that. But I would say, please don't. There are better things you can do with your money than buy a $50 article, because I'll go and I'll get it for you for free, typically, in a day or two, but up to 5 days. So do utilize that service to make sure that you're getting the research that you need for your paper, for your project, just by budgeting that little bit of extra time. Okay. All right. So that's where I'm going to leave off with talking about articles and journal databases. So I'm going to come back to our guide here and scroll down a bit and talk about books and ebooks. So all of these databases here are ebooks. I'm going to jump into ProQuest eBook Central. So all of the concepts apply, right? About how you go about conducting a search and limiting searches, all of those concepts apply across all of our library databases. Sometimes the interfaces will be different. Some of the features might be a little bit different, but essentially the basic concepts are the same across all these platforms. So here's my search on data visualization, and I'm gonna find my book here, Data Visualization for Dummies. That's my speed. And I think this may be a required reading for some of you too. So This is a different platform, right? So the interface looks a little bit different, but again, everything is essentially the same in terms of functionalities and all of that. So the reason I'm going into this database and talking about this is because there are some special things to consider with ebooks. So some things to note here, our institution has unlimited access to this book. That means, all of us who are on this meeting right now could all come in here and look at this book at the same time, no problem, no issues whatsoever. Those types of access limits, those licenses are determined by the publisher. So in this case, the publisher has said that's a model we're willing to support. In some cases, the publisher may be much more limited in how they restrict or relegate rule access to their content. So it may be that they say only one person can look at it at a time, and that's all that we can buy. So note that those limitations are set by and enforced by the publisher. We're always looking for unlimited access because we want to make sure that you can get to the content whenever you need it and not have to worry about running into a situation where you can't view something because somebody else may be looking at it or using it at the same time. You can download ebooks. So essentially, this is like checking out a physical book, and you'll see you can do that for up to 21 days. There are some things to note about downloading ebooks. First of all, you have to have an account for this platform. So this is a ProQuest. This is a different platform from Ebsco. So you would have to come in here and create your own account to be able to download this ebook. And then, and this is true of ProQuest ebooks and Ebsco ebooks, you will have to download and install Adobe Digital Editions, and that requires another account creation. Initially, there are quite a few steps involved to be able to check out and download ebooks for offline use. But if that's something that you see as being very beneficial to you, and you want to have that option available to you, then it's there for you. And I would say, go through the initial work to set those systems up so that you can do that. And certainly I'm here to help you with that if you run into any difficulties. I tend not to do that because number one, it is a huge hassle to go through and set up all those accounts and manage those and download things for offline viewing. Instead, I tend to go the route of downloading chapters. It's just much more manageable. It's a smaller chunk for me to look through. And for most of these, you can download several chapters at a time, which, if you think about it, generally that's what we're doing anyway, right? We're taking a couple of chapters and digesting them in those small chunks at a time, rather than just sitting down for hours on end to go through the entire book. So you can do that by going to the chapter that you need in the subsection and just downloading the PDF. Again, good old PDFs that we know and love. And then you'll see up here that the publisher has also placed limits on how much we can download or copy. The nice thing about this, though, that I found out is that these limits are session specific. So you'll see here, I came in earlier and downloaded a chapter. So I've taken my limit of 52 down to 46. However, when I close out this session, I can come back in and that will have gone back up to 52. So if I needed just that 58 pages to download for the content that I need at this time, then I can close out, come back in, and get those extra few pages. But again, these are just those quirky little publisher restrictions that are put in place there. And you can read it online. That just opens up the reader in here, and there's the book, the full text that you can go through and use, the table of contents over there, so on and so forth. And then all these little features up here, including there's our permanent link for this particular book down to this particular page for us. So if you have a certain chapter link that you want to use, then you can generate it in that way. Ebsco ebooks. The reason I'm pointing out these two databases is because this is where we have a huge number of ebooks. So both of these have well over 150,000 full textbooks in them for you to use. So in this case, we're back to our very familiar interface. And so this is going to do exactly what we saw over in the Business Ultimate database, but also, again, similar functionalities to what we just saw in ProQuest eBook Central. So that full download is available for ebooks here as well. But know, again, that you'll have to create not only that Ebsco account, but also you'll have to have that Adobe Digital Editions account to be able to download these things for offline use. Okay. Citation Help. So I always like to put in here some resources to help you when it comes to documenting the sources that you're using in your research, because that is par for the course for us in academia. We're going to be responsible and cite the sources that we use in our research. And so I think in business, you're using APA. And so here, not only is there a lovely picture of the APA manual there in its 7th edition glory, but also a couple of other links that might be helpful to you. This academic writer database is a great resource for all things APA style. So in this particular database, there are a couple of features here. This Learn, you can come in here and look at all different kinds of examples. So you can look at sample papers, sample references. There are guides and tutorials to help you learn more about writing in APA style, citing things in APA style, and all of this is now up to date with the 7th edition of the APA manual. This reference, so the nice thing about this particular database, again, this is one where you have to create your own little account to leverage all the functionalities within there. But a nice thing about this is you can come in here and manage all your references and sources in this particular database. So if you want to take it, one level up from the folders in Ebsco, then you can do that in here. You can search within here for references, but know that if you're doing that in this particular database, you're only searching for resources in APA PsycInfo. So in that situation, I would recommend that you do your searches in library databases and then import references into Academic Writer. It's a very involved process. It's not necessarily difficult, it's just involved. So if that's something that really kind of intrigues you and is something you might want to leverage, then we could connect and I can step you through how to export citations from Ebsco and then import them into this database so that you can manage references and resources here. And there's also a word processor within this particular interface too. And you can collaborate with folks in this particular database on writing assignments. You can assign sections to certain people to write on certain projects, and that all comes together in this particular database. And then once you're all done, you have the option to export this as a Word document or a PDF document. And it does, through this writing tool, facilitate citing sources in text and then generating the reference list at the end of it. So essentially, it will step you through inputting in-text citations and then generate for you at the end of the process the reference list. And it promises to format the reference list correctly to APA, which it should because it's an APA product. But I always caution people with these machine-generated things to double check to make sure everything is formatted as it should be. So again, if you're really intrigued by or want to really improve your skills in things related to APA style, then I think this is a database that's well worth looking into. And then there's a link to the APA style blog, so the official blog for all things APA style. So if there are any changes to APA style, which should not be too many since they just revised this this year, those types of things would be posted there. And then last but not least, just the reminder that I am here to help you at any point along the way. So if there was something that I said today that you're just like, now where did you click to do that? Or something as more intense as I need to get started on my literature review for my project. Can you help me pick databases, create search strings, help me evaluate a couple of sources? I'm available to help you with that as well. So not only do you have the traditional means that we talked about earlier to contact me, but you also have the option to make an appointment. So by clicking on that link, you can pick a date and a time that works best for you. And then we will sit down together for 30 minutes, and I'm all yours for 30 minutes to discuss anything and everything that you might want to know about using the library and doing your research. Right now, and this makes sense for you guys anyway, those consultations are all online, facilitated via Zoom or Teams or whatever platform you're most comfortable with. But know that that's an option for you if it's something that you think would be beneficial for you to do. Okay, so that's everything on that. I believe I covered everything on the library's website. So that concludes my little time. And so we have some time left over for questions. So if you have any, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or send them through the chat and we'll try to get to that too.
I have a question.
Yes.
The APA style guide that is available to the MLD and the certificate program students is APA 6th edition. And so can they get into your 7th edition on the citation book? Can they go in and look at it? Is it something they can check out or look at?
Right. So I believe I know what you're talking about. There's a little PDF embedded in D2L that has a little thing about citing sources and electronic sources specifically.
It's the APA 6th edition style manual. You click on it, it's a PDF of the whole book.
Right. So far, that's not been made available for the 7th edition.
Okay.
So this link right here will just take you into our catalog and just give you more information about the record in the catalog itself.
Okay.
However, that's why I like the academic writer, is because as you get into that database and you're looking at things, they will give you PDFs of relevant sections. So you can't go into Academic Writer and download the entire manual, but you can see PDFs of the actual 7th edition manual for sections where they made it available within that database.
Okay.
Rusty, when do you think that it's going to be available? Does it take like 6 months or so?
I really have no good answer for that. I really don't know. I don't even know if it's something that they'll are working on. I know that for the 6th edition, they did a very streamlined version focused on citing electronic resources. And I don't know if anything like that's forthcoming with the 7th edition. I know as an individual, you can go and get an ebook copy for yourself, but they have not made the ebook available to libraries on the platforms that we traditionally use.
So you will let us know when you will receive that?
Absolutely. Whenever that comes down the line, if it does, I will jump right on it and add it and send out an announcement.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions you have for Rusty?
Yes, I have one. When you were talking about looking for a source within the database, you went to the book and then you were looking at the subject in the area. And you said you could click on the subject statements there and it would bring up more. Is that going to have the same limits as your original search, or is that just a blanket full anything and everything that has that subject tag?
Right. So all the limiters and things that you may have set up for a particular search, when you click on that link within the record, it will kind of wipe all of that out. So you are essentially starting a brand new search when you click on any of these subject links.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
but again,
Rusty,
it's pretty easy on the left-hand side to go in and reapply some of those things.
We had another question.
Yeah, I was wondering, you talked about how we could save any articles that we wanted to look back at again. Did you say that we have to create an account within the library database, or do we just use our SMWC credentials to regain access to saved articles?
Right. So you would have to create your own separate account, standalone from your SMWC account within the library database. So here on this page, this little sign in, that's where you would go to create that. So one thing that I do personally is that I use the same credentials when I create this account, just so that I'm not trying to remember something else. So you can set it up so that your sign in is your college email address and password.
Awesome.
Any other questions? We still have a few minutes.
Rusty, didn't you say though that also that could save to Google Drive as well, that you didn't necessarily have to create an account?
Correct.
Okay.
So you would do that.
I want to make sure.
Right. You would do that at the article level. So you would have to be in the record for that particular article to have that option made available to you.
I just want to point out that if you do make the credentials the same as your credentials right now, you're going to have to change your password 90 days from now for your St. Mary of the Woods credentials. But the sign-in won't change because they're not connected.
That is correct.
So just make sure that if you use your password, St. Mary of the Woods and a password, write it down somewhere. And then, 90 days from now, when you have to change it, then you'll still be able to go in there and get it. I love having my folders.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too, I just want to point out, instead of actually doing a folder by class, you might want to do it more by topic, because there may be some articles that you use in one class and you think, oh, those articles would be great, that it applies to this one component that I'm working on in this class. So you may want to be more topic related, because you can always rename them or, do something like that as well.
That's right. Those folders are completely customizable. You do it how it works best for you. And then Jenny is right. You can go in and rename folders too. So, I mean, it's very user-friendly and has a lot of functionality for you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Pam.
Oh, I'm sorry. Rusty, when we, if we can't get access and we do ask for your assistance to send us an article, it would just come from you after we fill out that form. It would come to us in our email.
Right. So those requests will come to you in an email, and it will not be from me. It'll be from the system that we use to facilitate those requests. But I mean, it will be clearly labeled that this is an interlibrary loan request for something that you've asked for, and then you'll just follow the link within the email to access the content. So it's very simple, very user-friendly, but yes, you'll get an email that will alert you that the content is available for you.
And is it available to read at a minimal amount of time or indefinitely, or how is that?
Right, there are some limitations on accessing the content through that link. I believe it's a certain number of days or a certain number of clicks. However, it's going to be a PDF, so you can just save the PDF wherever you would like to, and then you retain access to it indefinitely.
Thank you.
One other thing too that we did not cover is that you can set up an RSS alert, so that essentially if there's something you're interested in, and a lot of times when people come into the MLD program, within the first course, they have an idea what their topic will be for the thesis. And so you can set up an alert system in the library so that it'll send you information about under certain search parameters. Rusty, can you talk a little bit about that?
Right, that's right here on this screen here. On that little share button over there, once you've created your search, and this is tied to the search at this point, there is the link to create the RSS feed or the email alert. So however you prefer to receive those things, you just follow through and sign up, and it will be generated in that way.
That's real dirty.
What we discuss right now, it's essential because as we will see in later today at 1 when we'll do the orientation, we will see that we will build projects or topics throughout the MLD program. So some of the students, as Jenny mentioned, they know that they want to build an organization, for example, a business plan, a non-for-profit. Of course, you will have multiple ideas and maybe you will change, but some of you're coming and you know exactly what you want to do your research on. Keep in mind that we need articles that they are the 5 years old by the latest. And we will learn more about that when we will move forward with the research course. If you have older articles, you have to have a justification why you use that. Maybe it has to do with the principle, maybe it's something very essential, but you need a justification. Otherwise, we need articles that they're no more than 5 years old. So build these folders by topics. It will be interesting to do that, and it will be very helpful throughout the program. Any other questions? We're almost there.
Thank you, Rusty.
Thank you very much. And
Sure.
Don't forget to stop the recording.
Sure thing. And again, if you need help at any time, I'm here to help out. My job is help you be successful in your research. So please never feel embarrassed or ashamed to reach out for help. I am here for you.
Thank you, Rusty.
Very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll just let you know, any MLD folks